here at Midtown Comics. I have Cy Spurrier and Casper Wingard, and we are talking about their new series, Angelic, which just came out a couple weeks ago from Image. Cy, what can you tell us about the book?
Oh heavens! It's kind of a science fiction fable set in the far future about a rebellious teenage monkey with wings. You know, one of those staples of all good comics. Who she's sort of been raised in this very repressive tribal society in a world that has no humans in it anymore. So there are no humans in this issue, and she has this really horrible decision to make. She's sort of curious and she's interested in everything, and the society she's been raised in punishes all such quizzical endeavors. And worst of all, she knows that pretty soon she's going to be expected to become a mother, and when that happens, one of the things they do in this tribe is that they take her wings away. And so she's got a pretty horrible future awaiting her. And so she flies away, and she just sort of wants to go on adventures, but in the course of doing that, she gets tangled up in a sort of quest for answers about why their world is the way it is. She runs afoul of some cybernetic dolphins, which is another staple of all good comics. And yeah, it's just, I guess the biggest thing to point out here is that it's the challenge we have set for ourselves with this book is to create a story that a grown-up can walk into the local comic store and pick up and really love, because it's full of themes and important stuff. But likewise, a youngster should be able to pick it up and just have a really fun adventure and not worry about the bigger, darker things going on in the background. So yeah, it's sort of a conscious attempt to hit the widest range of readers that we can get.
Well, you're talking about a wide range of readers, but you're also talking about a wide range of crazy things. I mean, we're talking about flying monkeys and mechanical cyborg dolphins. What has that been like for you, Casper, when you see that script and you see that this is the world that you have to create from the ground up? Do your eyes just pop out of your head?
Well, this is why I chose to do the book. It was like nothing I'd ever read before. So, yeah, I think when me and Cy decided we wanted to do a book together, he shot past a couple of ideas with me, and this is the one I thought, wow, I really want to draw cybernetic flying dolphins and flying monkeys. And then there's crazier things along the line. Yeah. Like this doesn't even scratch the surface yeah, sure. of how crazy things go, especially with the animals that you eat. You meet more and more animals throughout the season, throughout the series, and yeah. They're more bizarre than the last, I can say, for sure.
There's some great stuff in there.
Well, and of course, you get to kind of do some really unique things with this. I mean, what inspired you to kind of go in this direction with such a, with such a crazy type of story?
Let me take that from you. That's a really good question. It just sort of a whole bunch of obsessions, things that interest me, all kind of came together all at the same time. I don't quite know where the whole sort of winged monkeys thing came from. I guess it's all about challenge, right? I mean, you do a whole bunch of books, and eventually you come to the point that you want to do something that's utterly unlike anything else, and it shouldn't work to do a book which is fundamentally about what it means to be young and human, but there aren't any humans in the book. That's the phase cat. She's wonderful. So yeah, She's going to play an increasingly large role as we go forward in this book. It's one thing that I'm fascinated by is perspective, right? So this is a world. The story happens in a world which is clearly, the readers will understand, the remnants of a long-lost human civilization, right? So it's basically the ruins of San Francisco that it all takes place in. It's recognizably high-tech, recognizably a bit sci-fi. There's sort of toxic clouds. It's all ruined. Something really bad obviously happened at some point in the past. And the readers will know that. But because it's all seen through the eyes of this young, very awesome, brave, essentially teenage character who knows nothing about humanity, nothing about technology, nothing about history, it ceases to be a science fiction story and becomes a fable. And so even though there's no fantastical elements in it in the way that you or I would understand, there's no dragons and stuff, but it's full of things that to her seem utterly magical. And that's cool to be able to do a book like that.
Well, and I think that's one of the interesting things. You talk about how you keep it from being too dark or too, despite these darker themes and stuff like that. I would say, you flip through this, it's a bright book, it's a fun book, it's a very, you look at even just looking at the dressing on this, it doesn't look like it's doom and gloom. It looks almost inspiring, and it kind of wants to bring to a world of magic. What keeps you so lighthearted when you see these scripts?
Well, yeah, if we wanted to do this all ages, I think if I'd done something that was more realistic, you would have a book that was essentially Planet of the Apes with a mecha thing. It would look completely different. It would be Transformers and Planet of the Apes crossover. It would be a completely different beast, and it would be really, really grim, and it wouldn't appeal to a younger audience at all. Well, it may or may not, but it was more important to do something that wasn't doom and gloom. It's a trope I feel that's been played far too many times when it comes to post-apocalyptic stuff. Everything is just dead and dusty and grey, and that's not fun to draw as an artist. It is, but it's more fun to do it this way, I think, to do something that's bright and colourful, and you can play with things and see, make up ideas of what would have happened long after we've gone, and the Earth is still alive, it's still vibrant, it's still able to survive without humans. It did for a long time before we came along, and it grew in beautiful ways before we came along and destroyed it, and now it's growing back again, and it's done such in a different way, I guess, from what we've left over.
It's funny, it almost makes it sound like it's more of a fantastical version, because I always think, when I think post-apocalyptic but still family-friendly fun, I think of something like WALL-E, where granted, that's a completely different world from this, because that's obviously more space-oriented in some ways. But it is a very interesting niche to fit into, and I think that makes it really stand out. With something like this, do you plan on, being here forever? Do you have, how far into the horizon are you looking?
I mean, it's really interesting you mentioned WALL-E apart from anything else, because that's, A, it's one of my favorite films, and B, it's clearly in the DNA of Angelic. We described this as WALL-E meets Watership Down by way of The Handmaid's Tale. It's a really strange combination of things, but and in the same way that those fabulous Pixar movies do, we have set ourselves this challenge of making something that is ostensibly bright and cheerful and fun for youngsters, but also there's jokes in there for the grown-ups if they see them. To answer your question, yeah, we have big plans for this world. So we will go up to 6 in Arc 1, and that's already written. You're almost there, right, with the first arc. And then we know roughly what's happening in Arc 2.
It's just more of a case of working out what cool animals we're going to
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, one of the big things, one of the themes in the story is that every ending is also a beginning, and that's exactly what Caspar was just saying. This is a post-apocalyptic world, but it's a young world and a beautiful world. And there's, again, to waffle about perspective, when your central character doesn't understand very much, everything they encounter is an act of wonder, whether it's frightening or beautiful. So yeah, there's really no limit on where we can go in this world, because everything will always be wondrous when she encounters it for the first time. So yeah, we are in for the long haul, basically.
Well, cool. Now, when you know that you got a long haul, and you know that you've got this whole world to populate, Caspar, are there any things that you want, that maybe they haven't popped up yet, but any ideas that are, tickling in the back of your brain, where you're like, oh man, I gotta find a way to fit this in?
I think in the first arc we cover quite a lot, don't we? There seems to be, I think a lot of the things I would have liked to have drawn in this book, I've actually had a chance to draw in this first arc. So it's trying to find new things to draw in the second arc. So that's what we were discussing, like changing location maybe, because this one's set in a city that's by the sea. So we do a lot of things in the city. We do a lot of stuff around the ocean. We do a lot of stuff around beaches, but like the Bay Area. Yeah, levitating humpback whales and flying squids and God knows what. And and then, essentially we want to move somewhere else, and like a completely different thing, maybe snow or sand, or and see what creatures we can bring in from there, and how they've been genetically modified, and how they were fitted for this war that they don't remember fighting. and and what fun things we can do with them, and how Cora will interact with them and carry on with her story. So yeah, like for the first arc, I kind of feel like I've covered most of the bases. It's just trying to fit them all in now and make it cohesive. But yeah, it's been great. It's been loads of fun.
Well, okay, you talk about you've got a future arc and stuff like that. What, if you can only, obviously can't say a whole lot, but what do you have to say that'll really get people hooked, that'll really bring them in, where you're like, okay, so this is what we got going on, but look on the, this is what's upcoming.
I guess the kind of the macro story for the first arc is that Cora and her companion, who I'm not going to tell you about because he rocks up at the beginning of issue 2 and he's super cool. They go on a quest ostensibly to find out why their world is the way it is. And there's an awful lot of twists and turns on the way, but by the end of the first arc, we're going to have seen why all these animals are the way they are. As Caspar said, they're genetically engineered, they've been cybernetically altered. These are clearly the hallmarks of design. Somebody at some point in their distant past has created them. And they're pretty sure there was a war, and they don't know anything about the war. So by the end of the first arc, we're going to have seen some pretty rotten stuff that happened in the far past, and then start looking forward again. So yeah, it's rather lovely. It's a sort of familiar sci-fi trope being seen through utterly new, fantastical eyes.
Well, that sounds very cool. Caspar, what can you tell us that's your favorite thing you've drawn that nobody's seen, that you can't wait to see what the reaction's like? I'm just so curious. It's such a crazy world. I mean, yeah.
There's a chase scene at the beginning of issue 3 that I think lasts for about 4 pages. That was really fun to draw, and it's like a one-sided dogfight almost, isn't it? It's Cora and her companion flying through parts of the city, being hunted by something as missiles are flying past them, and it goes on for quite a long time, and that was really good fun to draw. So yeah, I'm looking forward to people reacting to that, because I remember when I read the script, I was like, this is going to be quite insane to draw, because it really is. But yeah, there's that, and there's some really freaky stuff that comes along towards the end of the book, which I'm just about to draw, and I'm just trying to work out how I'm going to do it. But yeah, the guys that made the creatures the way they are, they didn't really stop at monkeys with flying wings. They did everything, and there's some unsettling creatures that you're going to meet towards the end of the book. But yeah, drawing them's been quite a challenge, because again, like, they're unsettling to look at, but it's an all-ages book, so you kind of have to find a way of making them grotesque, but also not gory. So that again, that was probably the biggest challenge, doing things like that. But I think we did all right.
Just remember, there's a bit. It's probably issue 5 or something where, without spoiling anything too much, we discover that one of the factions from the distant era, the distant past, was unable to use technology because reasons. And so the only thing that they were able to manipulate was biology, genetics. Okay. That's perhaps how we end up with creatures like Cora. But in the midst of a place that they were doing some of this stuff, they had need for a screen, a monitor. Okay. And so we came up with a way that they could do that without using anything except biology. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's very funny and kind of gross.
Well,
I'm still yet to draw that, so I'm still trying to wrap my brain around how it's going to work. So I need to watch a lot of nature documentaries. I think I'm going to have to find Planet Earth out from somewhere and try and see if there's anything on there that I can use as a reference.
well, it sounds like a lot of fun. It's been really cool already. I mean, it's been one issue. It's been great, and now honestly, I'm just curious to see what the screening technology is. And it sounds like it's going to be a great book. So thank you so much for stopping by. Everybody, please pick up Angelic #1 by Image Comics. It's a fantastic book. Issue 2 will be out soon, and there's tons more to enjoy from then on. So thank you guys for coming by.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Cheers.